Hey guys, welcome at your first module in the Get Started section where we're going to flip the script. And with flip the script, what I mean is that we're going to change the way we think about fundraising. Because the reality of the game is that everybody is following the standard playbook. And what we're doing, we're battling against investors that are highly sophisticated. Those are individuals that are receiving day in, day out multiple deals because they have a name tag, and the name tag says investor, right? And what we do as founders is that we use our best practices for what we know in order to approach and proceed. And then we, of course, are very hopeful that we are able to get their money. But I can tell you that if you would like to belong to the 2%, is that we need to do things differently. And flipping the script is what we're going to discuss here, what it means to be different. So in this module, I'm going to discuss with you how you can position yourself in an alternative way so you belong to the 5% and not the 95%. So we're going to talk about your approach, the way you set your mind, and the way of thinking. And by the end of this short module, I really hope to give you some guidelines and examples how you can actually improve your outreach, improve your approach, improve your pitching. So, as always, I like to kick off with a quote, right? In this case, it's flipping the script. And the key takeaway here of this module is, rather than you are begging investors to invest in your business, like investor, please give me the money. Are you ready to invest? I have an amazing deal. Would you like to invest? That's all very submissive behavior. And in exchange, I would like to invite you to be proud of what you're building. And I would like to inspire you to position your business as a great de-risked opportunity. So by positioning your business as the prize, you make investors chase you rather than you need to beg for attention. Because if you're begging for attention, everything is going to work against you. You are not important. You will not be on their priority list. There is no FOMO, fear of missing out. So let's go over some of the examples to bring this point home. As I shared with you, in order to shift the investor mindset, we would like to avoid neediness. Neediness is you need the capital, I know that. You want the capital to build a talent, the team, you expand to new markets, you finance an acquisition. But the more needy you are, right, the less you will get the money. And we need to see it here as there's two individuals who are in the middle of a transaction. Now, in order to get a fair transaction, it needs to be the value that is getting exchanged. So this investor is providing you the money and you're providing the equity should be equal. Now, and if you're very needy, it means that you're selling your products, services, or goods for pennies, right? So don't beg, avoid neediness. And this is visible in your tone, in your email structure, and specifically if you're overselling. And I have been a victim of that myself. You know, I want too much, get this deal done, right? And you start to grab all of these potential great things that can happen in your business. You start overselling. A better attitude would be to stay calm. The more words you need to bring your points across in an email, you know, I get these daily, endless emails, is the less powerful you are. You will see, if you're interacting with investors, that their answers are very short. So what we need to do in any kind of situation is we need to mirror what the investor is doing, right? So we also would like to position ourselves as someone who's able to swiftly, clearly explain an opportunity. And specifically also in your tone, right? A very simple example could be this. If you are sitting on a phone call for 45 minutes straight, you don't respect your own time. And you give the investor the impression that you have all of the time in the world. If you want to set up a meeting together, and when are you available, right? Means that your whole agenda is open. That is not the case. What you want to say is like, hey, I have a slot tomorrow available for 30 minutes. Let's have a quality meeting with a clear agenda to see if we can be partners together. It's more about, rather than being very needy, is that you want to make sure that you are positioning yourself as the price, ideally, otherwise as equal partners. So if you don't do that, it also weakens your authority, the way you position yourself, the expertise. You'll lose investor respect, and also the perception the investor of you has is not so good. The second thing is, we want to dive into the investor perspective, and I already mentioned this clearly. Wait for a moment, Who is an investor? If you reverse engineer what an investor is, it's an individual with a lot of money. Now, unless he's a trust fund baby and he gets all of the cash without making any effort, that's an exception. But the majority of the investors out there are seasoned entrepreneurs who did their business in a smart way, find a gap in the market, and were able to monetize on that. Now, and if you move forward in your business adventures, you will find out that the more focused you are, the less time you give to bullshit, the more clear you're communicating, the more respectful you do business, the more you respect someone else's time, is where you get shit done. So the investor perspective is all about, he's busy, you're not the only one who's sending him messages. He would love to invest because he looks for methods to at least bring a return home on his capital, right? And if you just think about all of these things, who is the investor? It's a seasoned, he's most probably educated, he's very well networked, he don't want to waste time, so he's not going to write a lot of long emails. If he doesn't respond immediately, don't get offended, So if you think with a logical mind, you will find out that a KISS method, how we call it, is that you want to keep your investor communication short and simple. Limit it to, one call to action. Ask one thing in your email. Don't ask 10 things in your email. Keep it simple. Limit your communication to 150 words maxed. Make it sure that your email is easy to scan, because it's not easy to scan. It gets parked in the coming back to it later box, and nobody will come back to it later, and you stick behind, right? So short. Use then investor lingo. If you don't know the investor lingo, for example, all of the business metrics, investment structures, the way the investors talk together is a great way, so you can copy paste that, integrate it inside of your emails, inside of your connections, inside of your communication, and position yourself and also on the same level. Because in the start of any conversation, everyone has their chest up and they're thinking like, okay, who was going to win this game, right? So talking the right lingo, making sure that you understand the perspective, not being needy. And then of course, an investor, you don't want to sell the opportunity. You want to offer a partnership, right? And again, we're mostly startup founders more than normal private equity entrepreneurs, if I would like to say. They really sell the hockey stick models, right? But if you respect the investor, and you know that the investor has at least 100 deals that are getting thrown to his desk on a monthly basis, he will not invest in all 100. Maybe he'll choose one, right? But the one that he's choosing for is incredible, very well researched, and the risks are clear. So imagine that you're not only showing the good side, but also able to highlight the risk, right? So highlight the risk that is in this deal. If you are unsure you reach certain projections, highlight the risk that comes with that. And what I always like to do, and I strongly recommend you, is you want to create a sheet where you highlight all of the risks that are there in this specific deal. And then on the other column, you mention all of the solutions that you have come up with to de-risk that. By you positioning the risk and highlighting it and sharing your thought about it, you become a very interesting partner to talk with. An additional tip I would like to give to you, if you're making your financials, if you're communicating, sell the worst case scenarios. So you have worst case, base case, best case, right? Make your worst case scenario so good and interesting, which we're going back to in a second, and get buy-in on that. Then you will see that selling on the base case or on the best case becomes easier. If someone already loves what they have and can only get better, again, don't oversell it, right? So how do we create interest? The interest is really created through seduction, right? But in order to be seduced, we just want to do things, again, different than all of the 95% out there. So the first thing that you need to realize is that trust is built over time. 9 out of 10 times, I'm getting an email in my box for people who are seeking investment from 7X Capital. And there's this long dragged email, which is suffocating for me to read. There's this too comprehensive pitch deck. If I'm open it doesn't, it doesn't resonate. Wrong fonts, no images, very messy, heavy in files. All of these things together, they're just simply not working. What you want to do instead, and again, we are going to talk about this in the Fund Fast funnel later on, is you want to crystallize your whole pitch into multiple assets. And these assets start, for example, with the teaser, right? So you first want to make sure you pull in attention. And once the attention is there, you're going to attract someone to you. And when you feel that someone is hungry, you're taking action. So my advice for you is hold back the full pitch. Delay the actual pitch, but paint the future. The moment you start pitching, comes close to selling. You don't want to sell, right? You want someone to ask for the deal. Tell me more, what are the terms? Is a great one. And the reason why you're watching this Get Funded Formula Overview workshop is that raising capital in our world is a 6-step funnel. It's not just a pitch. You're getting started, you're getting prepared, you're making sure that you're getting noticed, then you start booking interest. After interest, you're getting offers, and then you get funded. And each of those 6 steps has their unique palette of mini projects and mini actions that you need to fulfill in order to create that tension. The other point is selective availability. I already mentioned it before, but if your agenda is always open, which it should, right? But it means that you're not communicating to the other party that your time is valuable. And just like investors who are in their role, their time is money. And I would like to challenge you to see also your time is money. Incredibly important. So if you're communicating anything around time slots, communicate in 30-minute time slots. Be sure that if you are starting the meeting, that you're paving the future, that you're sharing like, okay, the coming 30 minutes we have together, if we can close it in 20, I'm totally fine with that. But just to walk you over, in the coming 10 minutes, I would like to share a little bit more about the business. And the remaining 20 minutes, I would like us to have a healthy conversation to see where we potentially can get synergies. I have a follow-up meeting in 45 minutes from now. Let's try to keep it short in 30 minutes. This is a perfect example how you set the tone, that you're organized, you set an agenda, you're showing that you're busy, and you value someone else's time as well. And what I like to add here, always in the selective availability, if at any given moment of time in the meeting you believe like this is nothing for me, then please instantly let me know, because I don't want to waste your interest and time, and of course I'm also looking forward to my own time. So please let me know. Boom, you get this push and pull effect, right? Another thing is work with funding deadlines. What you will learn later on in the workshop is that you want to split up your round. You want to start with all of the investors at once. The more you work with timelines where investors need to commit, in other words, you ask them to respond at a certain date or a certain time slot, that's how you keep control over the situation. And last but not least, we want to incorporate psychological triggers. So we want to get oversubscribed. Now, and if you think like, what the fuck is oversubscribed? Oversubscribed means you have more people having interest in what you have to offer than you have actually slots available. So it's a supply and demand game, right? Now, one of the methods that we use with extreme success is that we're building waiting list. A waiting list of investors that have already indicated that they would be interested to learn more and discover more about this deal. If your waiting list is big enough, then eventually you will find out that raising money is a lot about the number game. But you need to have the numbers in place in order to do that. More about that later. The second point is foster FOMO. Eventually, we're all animals. We're all human beings. We're all triggered by matters of influence, right? And one of these things is fear of missing out. If I know that a other investor or 60% of the round is already filled up, I think like, okay, hey, maybe this should be great. If I see that there's a lot of PR around your business, hey, maybe I would like to jump in. So one of the ways to foster that is, previously I shared about the deadlines, right? But you want to start your investor communication simultaneously, right? Because if you start with a group of 100 investors all at once, and yes, it's busy at that time, right? John and Barry, two different investors, will be always in the same stage of your funnel, right? And because they're in the same stage of your funnel, you can then leverage deadlines in order to push them. You can then leverage like, okay, hey, I have already 20 soft commitments. John, do you want to get in, right? A great strategy for this is how I actually start all of my fundraising rounds, and I currently already did close to $240 million for a shipload of clients, and including myself. But get reputable micro investors on board to leverage authority. Now, what are micro investors? Micro investors could be seasoned CEOs, executives, who maybe don't have like 25, 50, or $100,000 available to throw to your opportunity, but maybe they have $5,000. And if you create an SPV, a special purpose vehicle, which is a mini company, right, then you can host these micro investors that are all chipping in $5,000 to get your round started. But more important is you can leverage their authority. So, for example, let's say you know a very famous startup that you have respect for, you can get connected with it, your deal is really good, and the leader of the pack is a brand name. Well, then you can, of course, leverage that name, even if he just puts in $5,000, which you don't need to say. Another way how you can trigger psychology is leveraging social proof. Get your positive investor reviews, get positive investor and vendor and client reviews, because it shows what you're doing that works. And in our Didi all-in-one solution, which is an all-in-one funding platform to raise capital and manage your investor relations, we have a special section for this. And in this workshop, you have free access to it. So I would 100%, I would like to invite you to check out Didi so you can create your own review page. The other point is be an authority in your field. Make sure that your LinkedIn and social media is bulletproof. If you send an email, the first thing that people are going to do is they're going to check, okay, what's the LinkedIn? Who's connected with that? What is this person talking about? So if you start raising money, make sure that you have your LinkedIn post ready that positions you as an authority. So here you have it in the Flip the Script Module 1 section, right? And I would like to close this module by saying not all investors will like you, or invest in you, and that it's really perfectly fine. Raising money is a lot like dating, right? And not all of the people that we date, we have a connection with. And I strongly recommend you to go after the candidates that you feel good with, right? These investors. Now, as two action points that we do in each of these modules, I would like to ask you to go to study the Investor Lingo Definition Worksheet. It provides a lot of investment terms. Study them, understand them, challenge them, and throw them in ChatGPT. Ask if ChatGPT can ask you questions about it. Incorporate it in your emails, incorporate it in your communication, use the same metrics, because then you're already ahead of the pack because you talk their language. And the second point is, if you would be an investor, try to think about their mindset. Or otherwise, if you know an investor that is close to you, book someone's slot for 15 minutes in their agenda. It's like, okay, can you share me a little bit more about how you perceive new opportunities? What is your thinking process? These are little steps you can take to really start embracing the funding game. So without further ado, this was module number 1 in the section Getting Started, Flipping the Script. I hope this is valuable for you, and see you in next module.